Welcome to the podcast. The podcast is called Most People Don't, But You Do. We have stories and conversations with people that are remarkable. Today's guest is no exception to that rule. His name is Ray Snyski. Let me read a little bit about Ray before we dive into some questions. Ray is the group president, ALG Vacations in Amstar, DMC. I had the pleasure of meeting Ray several years ago when I was invited to participate with ALG Vacations Kindness Conference and also their Ascend Conference. And what really impressed the heck out of me was the culture that ALG Vacations has, the culture that Amstar DMC has, the culture that Hyatt has. I used to be with Hyatt many years ago for 10 years. And then I saw Ray speak. And he's on stage and he's not talking about profitability. He's not talking necessarily at this conference about destinations. He is talking about people matter, and he's talking about kindness. Just a terrific gentleman. Let me pause right there and just say, Ray, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Bart. I really appreciate it. An honor to be participating. I know we've worked at this for a little while to get our schedules aligned, so I really appreciate the persistence and thrilled to be a part of it. Thank you.
And Ray is traveling all the time, so to our listeners, this is certainly a very special treat. Ray, I want to get into our podcast, again, very fortunate, top 2 to 5% consistently globally. And I believe the reason why is that we get people on that we've identified that are unique and special. I want our listeners to be able to learn certain things from you and about you. We will go over a little bit of your history, but we're not going to be talking about trends in the travel industry. We're not going to talk about things like that. I want to get your perspective on you, your leadership, and how you got to be so unique with your representation of kindness and fairness and giving. Where do you think all that came from, Ray?
I think all of our foundations and roots start from the very beginning. And so I was born in the beautiful suburb of Manhattan called the Bronx. And we had a great family that loved each other. We didn't have the strongest financial background or things along those lines. And I think a lot of my early influences were the ones that many people have. It was those special teachers that took a point to really understand you and really try to bring out the best in you. And I have been really blessed to be active in sports for most of my life. And so I was able to play football and baseball in college. And so a lot of my early influences were coaches that taught me discipline and camaraderie and integrity and all different types of things. And there was one that stands out. I had a little league coach that was an outstanding baseball player. Stories that preceded him, that him and Rod Carew, who's a famous Hall of Fame baseball player, grew up together. And this guy's name is Al Tomarelli. And the story has it that he was even better than Rod Carew, but he went to Vietnam and he was injured and lost his leg. And so sometimes it's a little humbling to see about the breaks in life, positive and negative, that happen. And I remember conversations with him. He was working for a tow truck company, and I would go over to his job and we would just talk about sports and talk about life and those kinds of things. And there wasn't a bitter bone in his body. He could have potentially gone on to be a Hall of Fame baseball player. Didn't work out for him. And so I think you find so many things to find strength in, is how people handle adversity, how they overcome things, and really don't use any excuses. And so he was a great influence on my life early on.
Yeah, and Ray, I've heard you share with me personally and as well as on stage a little bit about growing up in the Bronx. Was it a difficult life for you as a youngster? Was it hard?
You know, what's funny is that it's dramatically different than my children's life, but it's what I knew. And so it didn't feel hard, but if someone was to look at it from a distance, they would probably say it was pretty hard. And I had some drug addiction in our family and some challenges along those lines. But I think it's one of the great strengths to anything I've ever accomplished in life is having a hunger and a drive to change your environment and to do things for your family that maybe you didn't have and so forth. And it's funny, like early on, I remember driving a tow truck for my uncle's gas station at Kennedy Airport at 13 years old. My son is 10, and I don't let him walk to the gate at our house by himself without keeping an eye on him. It's just a totally different world than it was then. But I really attribute that to having your own confidence and your own ability to overcome challenges and so forth. And I was able to see some tough things in my life. And having seen some of those things, I never got nervous in a boardroom or never got nervous around other executives. And I think that's a big part of the foundation of who I became as a person.
Yeah, and what I also notice about you, Ray, is that you are the same. It doesn't matter if you're speaking in front of 4,000 people or you are meeting my wife and I at a conference. You really get to be who you are, and there must be some great comfort in that. Were you always confident like that, even growing up?
You know what? It's interesting, and I really appreciate that compliment. I like to think of that as one of the best compliments, and I have been blessed to hear that multiple times. And that how I look at it is one is I had some confidence in myself, and I think some of it is those early influencers or teachers or coaches. They provided a confidence and a belief in you before you believed in yourself. And so I think that was just some of the push from the start. And then it got to a point where I just never really felt uncomfortable in any situation. I could adapt to situations and I didn't get nervous. I worked for Steve Wynn and things along those lines. And there'd be a lot of people really nervous around him. And early on, even when I first came out of college, they had recruited into the college ranks for some entry-level management talent to inject into the company with the opening of the Mirage. And I just saw the nervousness that he brought out in people. And I just never felt that. I just felt like, one is I didn't have a lot to lose. And I'm just out of college. I don't know, I think I was making $25,000 a year. If it didn't work out, I'd go down the street and work at Caesars. So there was that little inner confidence that there couldn't be anything that could be taken away from me. But I never was really nervous in those environments. And so I just always felt like I wanted to be a sponge and learn from others. And that's been the most powerful thing. But to your point about trying to treat people the same, that's been really important to me because many times, whether it's a bellman at a hotel or a kitchen worker, they're working and providing for their families at probably a higher success rate than my father was working and providing for his family. So who would I be to look down at anybody along those lines? And one of the greatest compliments I ever had is we do a lot of work in Mexico and the Amstar team. It's just fantastic. But my brother he was in a transfer going down to a hotel and he asked the driver, he said, I don't think you know my brother, but my brother's in the business. And he gives my name. And this gentleman said, oh, of course, everybody knows Mr. Ray. And he says, and the thing about Mr. Ray is he talks to everyone. Because a lot of times the senior executives come to the property and they all go right into a meeting. And Mr. Ray's late because he's high-fiving and hugging and saying hello to people and things along those lines. And I think it's a little later in your career when you've had some other on paper success that how much your time means something to people and to be noticed. And I try to remember names. It's hard. You're going to hundreds of hotels and things, but I really try hard. And one thing I learned from a gentleman, Bill Lamacchia, who was the creator of the Mark Travel Corporation, was I had never in my career, I started out in the hotel business working for Steve Wynn. And then I went to the Mark Travel Corporation in January of 1995. And it was the first time I'd ever seen an owner or president or CEO consistently ask about people's family. I remember it caught me a little off guard at first. And now I don't usually talk to anyone without asking about their family. And it just really resonates with people. And that's something that I'm very grateful to Bill for kind of teaching me that along the way, amongst other things.
Yeah, so you've learned a lot from business professionals, you learned a lot from family, you learned a lot from relatives, you learned a lot from coaches. Asking about the confidence thing and not getting nervous. And you shared, I didn't have anything to lose. So you knew that if you didn't get some role or if you got in trouble working somewhere or someone didn't like you, you had nothing to lose. And there's a really deep sense of, I think, positivity and hope. Have you ever thought about your element of how you are looking at things with hope and positivity?
Oh, absolutely. And I think some of it is also, I've never, and I've been through changes in ownership of companies. I've been through 9/11, the financial crisis in '08, COVID. There's never been one time in my entire career that I worried about losing my job. And certain times you could do a great job. It doesn't matter that certainly there's the environment or the timing or things that go wrong, that a lot of great people and great producers of outcomes can lose a job. But I never worried about that at one point. I just thought I'm going to do the best I can. And then as I continued to grow in my personal and professional life, it just kept reinforcing that just be the best you can be and push yourself and it'll all work out. And so I've never had that fear. And I have some very close friends that worry about that very same thing. And I think it's just an approach of things. And it's like my life today I didn't dream this big when I was a little kid. I remember overcoming things like having to use food stamps. And so it's funny. My brother and I he's a periodontist, has a very successful, he's got 3 or 4 practices in New York. And we would make a deal. I was just really uncomfortable with using them. I just felt that it was degrading. So I said, look, I'll make a deal with you. I'll carry the packages all the time if you use the food stamps at the checkout counter. And he'd get up there proud as a peacock, and he would just rip them out. And there's 2 purples, there's a blue, there's a red, there you go. And I was like waiting out by the carriages because I didn't want to have it be associated with it all. So I just think it's just that you create your learnings and you have a spin on life. And I try to never be arrogant. I try to never be entitled. I'm still a little kid. I've been blessed to do a lot of great things, I think I've been to 20 Super Bowls and all kinds of different events. I still walked into it. We took my son for his 10th birthday. We took him and a bunch of friends to the Brewer game on Friday night. I still go to a regular season game like a little kid. I really hope I never lose that excitement of how blessed my life is.
Yeah, it's an incredible way of looking at things, Ray. And you have shared on the side a couple of other things about growing up was not easy, yet you still have this positive attitude. And I hadn't heard that story about your brother that you made a deal, a little partnership, right? You use the stamps, I'll carry the bags, which I think is just, it's really remarkable. And also you had referenced about the name thing. I met you probably 2 or 3 times. And I remember going up to you like the 4th time and reintroducing myself. And you're like, Bart, I know who you are. It was just instantaneous. And I think that's it's special. And that is unique. And that is doing what most people don't do. So now that we understand a little bit of your background, I do want to get into the element of positivity and hope. I'm presenting in a couple of weeks to a leadership team, and they are asking me to talk about leading during difficult times. And I'm excited for me and for our listeners to learn your take on what would you suggest. You have some phenomenal leaders, and there's different unique times, I think, currently with all of us with regard to travel and a lot of uniqueness with regard to travel. So what would you say to your leaders during these times to keep them focused and hopeful and positive? I'd like to give a shout out and a very big thanks to our sponsor for today's podcast episode. It is wishes.inc. Many people carry thoughts like, my small donation is not going to make a difference. I don't have enough money to help. People won't use the money wisely. Well, these are stories. These are not truths. What this organization has created, Wishes.inc, provides documentation and transparency showing you that every gift counts. You can literally see the impact. You can help instantly without red tape. And then generosity does not need to be complicated. It can be joyful, direct, and fulfilling. There's going to be a link to the website off of our show notes. But if you would like some more information, please go to wishes.inc.
I guess probably the greatest example of that is I was named president of this company in June of 2020. So you remember what a dramatically wonderful environment that was. And I think leaders have to do a couple things. One is they have to show that they care. There's that old saying, nobody cares how much until they know how much you care. And you have to instill a calm and steady confidence that we're going to get through this. And I think the most important thing of a leader is you have to look at people's different unique abilities and create an environment to draw on those. And we have an amazing team, but I can't treat everybody exactly the same. Certainly from a fairness standpoint, everyone's treated the same, but there's different things that Johnny needs to do to be inspired than Lisa does, or someone along those lines. And so I try to really understand the person, what drives them, what their strengths are, and balance that. And it certainly goes to one of the smartest things I've ever done is there's that old saying is if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And so I'm surrounded by brilliant people that I'm just constantly in awe in. But I think that the confidence to say, we're going to get through this. I think the leader that feels the pressure financially or organizationally or so forth and pushes that pressure or that angst on the team, it's really tough to bring out the best in people when they feel that. And so we were laughing and smiling all through COVID, and we use this as an opportunity to really strip down some of the kind of bad habits we had as a company while we were going through that. And we didn't survive COVID. We came roaring out of COVID.
Yeah.
We changed with technology and business processes and leadership. We changed the company dramatically to the record year for EBITDA for our company. And not that all success is measured in EBITDA, but it's one of the criteria, especially when we were acquired by Hyatt. And it's no secret, Hyatt didn't buy ALG for the vacation packaging business. They bought us for the all-inclusive hotels. And I told the team, like, look, we're not the main reason why they bought them, but let's show them what we have and what we can do and what we're capable of. And the previous record EBITDA year for the company was 2019. And in May of 2018 is when Mark Travel Corporation and ALG merged. So that was the combined power. We hit 4 times that previous record in 2022. So, that's not something that happens by accident. And then one of the drivers for the team, I said, listen, success breeds autonomy. If you don't want, because I had a bunch of colleagues tell me, oh, you're going to work for a publicly traded company. It's totally different. You won't have the autonomy. You won't have the decision-making capability. And I thought, geez, that kind of sucks. But we just worked so hard and did such a great job. And one of the highlights of my career was the president of ALG was a man by the name of Alejandro Reynal, and he resigned to go be president of Four Seasons. And so Mark Hompelmazian actually stepped in and took the CEO role on an interim basis. That he had himself championed the acquisition of ALG. It was a big ticket item, and he wanted to make sure that this was not going to distract us into a way where he couldn't realize the opportunities within ALG and so forth. And it was 2 of the best years of my career, because if you haven't had a chance to know Mark, he's just everything that he is in front of the microphone. He's true and as advertised. Like, unfortunately, sometimes you see someone in front of a microphone and they're a very different person when the microphone or the camera's off. Completely authentic, really digs deep into the brand, gets his hands dirty. And his ability, one of the great takeaways I had from him is his ability to connect with people and make the time. I was always shocked at his availability. I thought I would give him an update once a month or things like that. And we met every week. We went through information and so forth. And I'll tell you a great story is that we had a terrible hurricane that went through the DR and really devastated some of the homes of some of our colleagues. So I had worked with our CFO, and we came up with a proposal to help people get back in their homes and be awarded some money based on the severity of the impact they personally had as a family. And we did the PowerPoint presentation. It had charts and graphs and all these things. And I was asking Mark for an incremental, I think it was like $350,000. And he's reading, this is very well done. Thank you. He's like, I just don't understand why you're bringing this to me. I said, it's nearly $500,000 of unbudgeted expense in a time where there was still some pressure during just the early times of COVID. And I said, those are the reasons why. He said, you make decisions much bigger than $350,000. You don't need to bring this to me. I said, well, you'll never see me come back a second time. And so it was really, but it was that kind of trust. And I think when you talk about how you bring out the best in people, you got to let people make decisions. And you got to let people feel like if everything's got to be run up the flagpole, and I tried to do that with our team, is we've got really bright people that went to great schools and have had great career experience and so forth. I don't need them to bring everything to me. And you got to make sure that you're instilling this kind of flexibility and autonomy to, it can do it and pull it off, but you got to let them do that. And you can't run around trying to stop them from falling down every second. So they've got to be able to make some decisions and so forth. And so we've got a team of people that I'm just so immensely proud of that really know this business. They're smart, they're innovative, they're hungry, and it's just been a great outcome for us.
So let me summarize a couple things, Ray. Thank you for sharing all those stories. It's success breeds autonomy. So work really hard, get excited about challenges, and just crush it. And when you crush it, people are not going to be micromanaging. And it sounds like how you have created and enhanced the culture with ALG Vacations and Amstar DMC. It's by allowing people to be themselves, allowing them to be authentic, you being there as the group president when they need you. And you've learned those lessons from other friends and from other leaders, as well as you said, right, hiring people and surrounding yourself with really smart people. Did I nail it? Is that kind of the essence?
You took years of effort and trial and error and making mistakes and summed it up beautifully. Because at the end of the day, we're in the confidence building business. So you've got to have whoever you report to trust you. And if we
Yes.
were missing our forecast every quarter and we were falling down, there would have been a lot more eyes and ears listening and watching what we were doing. And it's really been great that we've built this kind of confidence and track record on a product they really, at first, I'm sure, didn't even know what to do with. They really wanted the hotels, and our business has a lot of volatility in different markets and things like that. And so to be able to manage that well and not have any negative surprises for the Hyatt leadership team has really been a great blessing.
Yeah. And it goes back to also, Ray, what you were talking about, your sense of confidence. You never worried that you're going to lose a job. And I want to see how that translates over from your sports career as well, but never worrying that you were going to lose a job because you didn't have certain things to begin with. And when we're talking about, and then the positivity and hope that I'm not going to worry, worry is probably not going to help, but things are going to be fine, right? Things are going to be just fine. And even when we're talking right now, Ray, you are putting, I think, me and our listeners at a relaxed level because that is your consistent, optimistic, hopeful, energetic, enthusiastic, yet calm and confident building level. Like to me, you are this stream when everyone else is down here. So even if I was worried about something today or this morning, Ray, you just helped calm me down, which I just think that's such a great trait. You having confidence, positivity, hiring the right people, all of these things, it's creating this environment. And then I know that's why people follow you. And I know that's why travel advisors, when you get up on stage, stand and clap and cheer for you. Ray, how does the confidence perspective and the positivity perspective, how did that parlay into your college baseball career and your football career? Can you touch upon that? Because I'm just curious more than anything.
Yeah, I think along the way, as you're trying to instill confidence in others, you're instilling confidence in yourself. So there were times when there'd be something in front of us like 9/11, and sometimes the hardest I ever worked were in environments that it was hard to turn around instantaneously. And I think we all have a little instant gratification in us. But I think the idea that you can go through those things and get out on the other side just keeps feeding in on the confidence so that when the next big challenge comes up, you've been through some things. And I felt like that's always continued to be supportive. And I think the first time I ever played sports, I didn't grow up in an environment where my dad was out there pitching to me every day and doing that kind of stuff. I walked into the sport never having played it before, and I'm trying to follow as I go along. And I remember early on and playing like in the city of Yonkers, playing Little League baseball. And I was always a big kid, but no one ever taught me how to play baseball. So when I first started, I was terrible. And when I first got to the plate, there were some rough crowds and they were like booing me. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I barely know how to hold the bat or do anything. And these people are feeling threatened by it. But by the end of the year, I was hitting home runs. I was a starting pitcher on our all-star team and things along those lines. So I think it just comes down to getting every little bit of win that you can out of something, and then just letting that keep feeding. Not that I've ever done this before, but shoveling coal into the fire, right, and keeping the engine going and so forth. And the first time I ever thought about playing football in college and what were those people going to be like and all that kind of stuff. So I just think it's a lot of confidence comes from repetition, whether it be public speaking or whether it be new environments and getting out there and realizing, hey, I can hold my head high with these people and stuff like that. And so there are a lot of great times. There's so much camaraderie and fun in sports, but being able to work hard. And it's one of those things where you're in control of how successful you'll be. And don't get me wrong, there's certain people that are just gifted and they don't have to work as hard. You can work hard at something and know where your weaknesses are and try to limit those and build on your strengths. Sports is probably a perfect example of to your career on how you can really sharpen your saw on things that maybe you're not as great at and really work on building on the things that you are naturally good at. And so confidence has always been one that it's, I feel like my unique ability. Yeah. And I say that for our colleagues, I say that for suppliers that we work with and travel advisors, the whole kind of economic engine of our business. It's giving them confidence that we're the company of choice for their bigger future. And one of the great things on how we got through COVID is we had built such tremendous relationships with the hotel and airline community that I really felt like they were pulling for us. So beyond just everyone was trying to protect themselves and everyone was trying to do things to get themselves out of this disaster situation. But we came up with some really innovative products to the customer. When you sit back and you think about a company of our size, I think we had $400 or $500 million of refunds that were all going to hit us all at one time. And the way investments and things work, you don't always have 600 million in checking. And so we came up with a really unique program that was a travel credit. So instead of, if you don't cancel, we'll give you 125% of the dollars that you have on your reservation. So it worked out. We retained, I think, 70% of the cancellations on the books, and people got an extra, got to upgrade their vacation stay and so forth. But it was at that time, and then we had the camaraderie of the industry all helping to fund it with us. And so it was one of the biggest things that got us out of COVID. But it would have been easy for someone to say, oh, nobody else will do that and they won't partner with us. And so many times it's your own doubt that stops you from really doing something that's a game changer. And that was a game changer for us in our company. We were able to retain a whole bunch of business and let people know, look, we got bird in the hand right now. You let Mr. and Mrs. Johnson cancel, there's no guarantee they're going to come back to us and to you. So let's do what we can to keep it on the books. And the idea of giving someone an extra 25% sounds enormous, and that's what was making it appealing. But we had to do something that was going to shake the industry in a way that customers would really want to say, "Oh, keep my money on file." And so it was really a great job by the team.
And what I'm hearing, what our listeners are hearing, Ray, it's going back to this confidence again. It's confidence as a leader, confidence as a team, confidence as a company to make decisions that are maybe different, right? That most people would not do, but you all chose to do them. And then look at the impact. There was another word that you shared was trust. Your suppliers, your providers, your vendors, your customers, your clients, your travel advisor friends, everyone trusts. I think that is something in business that is really rather unique. And I want to give another shout out to you and to your team and to Jackie Marks and to your entire leadership team for this idea of a kindness conference. And thank you again, Ray, for you and your team for including me several years in a row now. It is absolutely unique because it is gathering individuals who are nominated from the travel advisor community to be kind. They're nominated, they need to be selected. And then at the event, we talked about kindness and we talked about well-being and we talked about in-body relationship and we talked about marketing yourself differently. You didn't talk about destinations. You didn't talk about Amstar DMC. You didn't talk about any of those things. Ray, would you mind just sharing kind of the genesis of the kindness conference? And I know it's built into the values of you and the company. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about it? If it's not
I'd love to. It's my favorite baby in that it stemmed with a vision that was really inspired during a family vacation to Africa. And as I said, I was born in the Bronx, grew up in the New York City area, and wasn't unknown to seeing some tough times and despair and things along those lines. But what I saw in Africa just blew me away. And it was inspired really. Most of the places we went right into the resort, so you weren't really transferring around in the neighboring areas or villages and so forth, except for on the last trip. One of the reasons why we picked Uganda was that we wanted to see the silverback gorilla. And so there was about an hour and a half transfer from the airport to our resort. And I cried for most of the ride because I saw things that just weren't fair. And it's funny, born in the Bronx, played Division I football. I used to be a little bit of a badass, and now I cry at the drop of a hat. It doesn't take much to get my emotions going. When they fix up a house and say, move that bus, I'm crying. My kids would always be laughing. And especially some people that are vulnerable is really what tugs at my heartstrings. So there was a little girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, and she was holding maybe a sibling, a baby, and she had an enormous metal gas can. And I saw her scraping this gas can across a puddle. And at that point, it just hits home that her victory for that day was getting some water out of a puddle and bringing it back home. And you couldn't even imagine to think of a life like that. I think of whatever might have been a tough scenario for me wasn't anywhere close to this. And so I also suffer a little bit of survivor guilt in that we'd love to say that everybody has the same opportunities in life, but sadly and soberingly, that is not true. The people in those villages don't have the same opportunity. And I sit back and I think, why is my son blessed to be born in our family and have all those opportunities and so forth? So inspired by that little girl, and I don't do it on every trip, but I try to take my family on vacations and go to an orphanage or a homeless shelter and try and do something to give back. And I think there's an obligation for us who have been blessed enough. And yeah, people work hard and they do a lot of things to reach goals and so forth. But a lot of it comes from being lucky and being in a place where you can have the opportunity to succeed. And so we went to this orphanage. It was like 350 children there that had lost both of their parents. And we went to see the headmaster, and it was almost an obligation to do more. And we talked with him, and it's funny because I'm not here to judge anyone, but they had two big poster boards of donations and then their aspirations. And so in the donations, there were people that gave $1, that gave $2, and things on those lines. And like I said, not judging anyone. If you're an American, you go to Africa for a week or two, you're spending tens of thousands of dollars. And the idea that the most giving they could feel is to give $1 just felt really unfair. And this is also when I already knew that I had the wife of my dreams, but I was emotional. And I said, I'll take the top 5 of the left-hand column. And it was build a school, buy a van, sponsor these children's clothing and food and all those kinds of things. Because even themselves, they don't always have the economics to give all the children, every opportunity to learn and so forth. And my wife didn't bat an eye. Like, it would have been totally acceptable and in her wheelhouse to be able to say, look, hon, you're a little emotional right now. Before we just start firing away this money, let's just think about it. You can do whatever you want, but maybe we pause and think about it and do it tomorrow or whatever. And she didn't. And it became such a passion for us that we started triggering other folks to do things. And we've built 15 water wells in villages in Africa that didn't have clean water. And you start thinking about your impact in life. And I haven't always been really necessarily driven by legacy or things along those lines, but I really like to have people that I've come across in their lives have some elements of their life be just slightly a little better because I was a part of it. And so that really helped to fulfill that drive. But it's been a big focus point for our give back programs. And so every one of our events, and we're blessed to have this opportunity to support a bunch of travel advisors coming for incentive trips, and we all get wined and dined and treated like kings and queens for 3 or 4 days. But it's an opportunity for us to give back. And so we'll go into orphanages or women's shelters or any kind of, even in the Dominican Republic, we went to support a baseball program where they kept kids off the street. They had to get good grades in school, but they could play baseball. And Anderson Hernandez, who's just a dream colleague of mine, grew up in the Dominican Republic, and we went back and got them uniforms and bats and baseballs and equipment. I mean, it was just spectacular. And so we do that, and it's become so contagious that not only are travel advisors and us and our company and our colleagues all donating money, but they're coming with suitcases filled with much needed supplies and things. And we go into these schools or villages, whatever the case may be, and we paint, and we bring some professional electricians to put in ceiling fans. And imagine trying to learn and being in an economically challenged environment, and it's 102 degrees in a classroom with no air conditioning, no fans or anything. It goes back to my point. Everyone doesn't have the same opportunity. And so we try to do the best that we can, and we've made a huge impact, and we've affected thousands of lives on the way to tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands over time. So it's that old saying, if your dreams don't make you nervous, they're not big enough. So we just want to take our blessings, and with a little coordination and a little innovation and focus on trying to bring the best out in people, it's created such tremendous momentum, and at the end of the day, that's what we wanted to do. And I don't mean this at all in any arrogant way. We have accomplished some great numbers, like revenue and profit and all those kinds of things. And those it's not only those things that drive us, but we're smart enough to realize if you don't get that, your ability to influence others gets limited a little bit. And so it's just been really fantastic. And now it's at a point, you said these kindness conferences, just watching people and their response to them, and how much it's unbelievable, the emotional connection that's developed there, and how much people talk about this changed my life, and it really has an impact beyond. And to your point, there's no booking bonuses, there's no promotion. It's not about that. It's really about how do we all become better human beings and be a little bit more aware on how much more we can do to affect the lives of those that really need it.
Yeah, it's absolutely tremendous, Ray. And I'm just thinking of a couple of stories, and I'll share with our listeners. One lovely travel advisor was so inspired last year that from last year to this year, she lost well over 60 pounds. That other individuals started their own fundraising event to give local bikes to the local schools. One travel advisor committed that they were going to write and share one act of kindness on social media a day for 365 days. That's the type of impact that you and Jackie and the team have created by gathering people together to talk about being good and being kind. And I just think that it is remarkable, Ray, and company, right? You, your leaders, the company, it's really doing what most people don't do, which leads to probably one of my next and almost final questions, Ray. You have great success. You surround yourself with smart people. You are very humble. You're very gracious. You count your blessings. You share your blessings. You thank your blessings. As a company and as a professional, why do you think other companies don't mimic or try to replicate the goodness that ALG Vacations and Amstar and Hyatt are doing?
You know what? I think a lot of them do. I think we're in a very caring and really a bunch of great people in the travel industry. It's just become a really big priority for us to be more front and center about that. And I think it's also having the confidence to be a little vulnerable. I think it would be easy for me to sit on stage and talk about statistics and all that we've accomplished financially and all those kinds of things, but it's hard to really change somebody's life when that's your lead story. And I know exactly the person, Casey, who lost the 60 pounds. One of my greatest successes is when she told me, you sharing your own journey made me really think that, and I share that with people. And believe me, it's not, as confident as I am, it's not great to get up in front of a stage full of 1,000 people and say, I really let myself get fat and out of shape and so forth. But I realized that you can help someone. And it's the age-old adage that if you don't do it today, you're not going to do it tomorrow. And it really came back to my why. My why wasn't enough of just wanting to do it for myself. It was my family, it was my children, but it was, hey, I'm not being, how am I considered very successful in so many things in my life, but I don't even have my health taken care of? It's just it was a ridiculous contrast. And I still have more to gain, more to gain in my
More to
health, not more
lose.
to gain in weight, but more to lose. But it has been great to just be vulnerable up there. And I think the balance that you really got to get right is too often confidence blends into a little bit of arrogance and entitlement. And it's really critical to have any credibility is to really show your vulnerability and show how you're still learning and show how you're still humbled by people and humbled by the success of the team. And you look at these old videos or movies of what's usually a white, gray-haired CEO banging his fist on the table, telling people they need to have more profits or they'll be fired and all that stuff. And I always just looked at those people as just insecure and little. Like they really, like my team has never heard me scream or raise my voice. It just isn't something that is part of my repertoire. And I think that when you have to do that, you've proven that you don't have the capabilities to inspire outcomes by just being a good person. And I just think that's the balance though, because you lose all the credibility when you come off entitled or arrogant. And I think not as many people want to follow someone who has those kinds of traits.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And you do share your humble beginnings, and you mentioned the Bronx a lot. And you are always remembering. And I think even just saying the Bronx between us, Ray, I think just mentioning the Bronx keeps you from becoming arrogant as one thing. I think your family, I think your heart keeps you from being arrogant. And you're so incredibly humble. And I do believe that more people can learn from the element of people over profits and passion over pennies. There's ways of being able to treat people. I shared a story a while ago, Ray, and it was great leaders don't need to make their team cry. You don't
Mhm.
need to raise your voice. You need to be confident in your approach, treat each individual as they need to be treated to pull the maximum potential out of everyone, just like the coaches did with you.
Sure.
And look at where you are and look at what you have built. And probably most importantly, yes, you are leaving a legacy for your family, which is so great. And you're creating better lives for so many people with your team all over the world. Ray, that is unusual. And that is truly what most people don't do, but you do. So, last couple of remaining questions. I'm sorry, I just cut you off there.
No, not at all. Good.
Okay.
Didn't say
Okay.
anything.
For our listeners that don't know what ALG Vacations does or what Amstar DMC does, would you mind just giving your brief explanation? Because this is where I want our listeners to help support what you all are doing, even
No,
if
I
they're not in
appreciate that.
trouble. Yeah. So just if you can share a brief description. And then this last question would be, how can we help you?
Sure. I think just to talk about who we are, it's ALGV is almost analogous to like General Motors. That's not the brand that's out to the consumer. It's a roll up of 7 different vacation brands, all with their unique strategies, all appealing to different customers and different booking windows. But we bundle together all the elements of a great vacation and provide some great value to the customer and some great services. And we have a global footprint of where we send people with a heavy emphasis on Mexico and Caribbean, because that's where our hotels and part of our sister company are. And so we've really been a great distribution force for those hotels, as well as a number of other hotels. Even though we have, and we're part of Hyatt, over 80% of our ecosystem is to non-Hyatt branded products. So we don't just sell our own family of brands, although we focus a lot on them, certainly. And then Amstar is our destination management company, for those of you that aren't sure what DMC means. And they are our boots on the ground in the destinations in which we serve that are really helping us with our end-to-end experience for the customer. So when they get off the plane, someone from our company with Amstar is greeting them and getting them to the hotel. And they are the largest in Mexico and Caribbean. They transfer over 40,000 people a week to different hotels in that area. They also have in-hotel support. So if somebody wants to have a question or things they need to help with any kind of service while we're there, as well as a pathway to great emotionally connection driven experiences, excursions, and things along those. They're your sage advisors on the ground. They tell you what to do, how you can do it, and so forth. So that combination has been very powerful, and it's been a very strong winning combination. So to me, just travel advisors are our lifeblood. They're how we distribute our products. If you're going to your travel advisor and talking about where you want to go on vacation, maybe hopefully they're going to offer ALGV to start off with, but if they don't and you want to bring it up, that would certainly be wonderful. But at the end of the day, if we do a good job, people that want to go on vacation will have a place there. And so we've had some really good track record with lots more hard work to go for years to come.
Yeah. Yeah. And that leads back to confidence and positivity, Ray. You just summarized it. If you're thinking about traveling, know that we're gonna take care of you. You can trust us. And so consider it, right? If you're calling your travel advisor, that confidence again, the confidence is incredible in such a relatable way. And I think that's what makes you an incredible leader, Ray, an incredible human being. I love the stories about your family. I know we don't have time to talk more about your family, but we'll get you back on. But I know how much they mean to you and how much they embrace and appreciate all the kindness and goodness that you bring to this world, Ray. Absolutely sensational. Last question, Ray Snyski. Can you fill in the blanks or the single blank? Most people don't blank.
Yeah, great question. Most people don't have enough confidence in themselves to take risks and to push back on the popular consensus or push through things they believe in. And I'm here to tell you that ice that you think might be a little thin and you don't want to take that chance, odds are the ice is 30 feet thick. And the people that really stand out in any kind of sector did it by taking chances, did it by believing in themselves. And sometimes we're our own worst enemy when it comes to our own confidence. And so take that chance, step out a little out of your comfort zone. When you go to someplace, try not to just hang around with your friends that you came to the event or the conference with and learn to meet somebody new and so forth. And I think if we could all be a little more confident in taking some risks in life, obviously calculated risks, and depending on what your situation is, how much risk you want to take. But I think there's a vast amount of success and reinforcement and great outcomes by just getting a little bit outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, a ship in a harbor is safe, but that's not what ships were meant for. Get out there, get onto the open sea, get out onto the ice, have the confidence. And Ray, you just gave us a roadmap, a game plan for personal and professional success. Surround yourself with the right people. Give them the ability to be empowered. Success breeds autonomy. Treat individuals with kindness and uniqueness. Be present. Use people's names. Be confident, but don't be arrogant. Remember where you came from. Spread love and joy. You don't need a legacy for leaving a legacy's sake, but try to make someone's day and someone's life a little bit better, because we are lucky. Ray Snyski, you are just absolutely a phenomenal gentleman and a human being, group president, ALG Vacations and Amstar DMC. If people would like to follow him, he has plenty of followers on LinkedIn, but his last name is Snisky. Ray Snyski, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bart. Thank you for really topping off my confidence. Most Mondays don't start with all these wonderful accolades and so forth, and I'm not sure if they're all deserved, but thank you for your kind and gracious comments. And it was really a joy, and hope to do it again soon.
Thank you, sir. Amazing.